to our conversations today. Hopefully, marami kayong mga makulot na mga insights from my lecture today. Isa akong sociologist na aking expertise ay sociology of generation, sociology of youth, sociology of religion. Sa umagang ito, maybe in the next 30 to 45 minutes, I'm going to share with you my own thoughts and scholarship pagdating sa sociology of youth and sociology of generations. As you can see on your screen right now, ang gusto kong pag-usapan ay understanding the youth of today. Kayo, mga kabataan. And why generational labels are wrong. Sige nga, let's have some audience participation right now. So, why don't you put in the chat box, sa tingin ninyo, what generation do you belong to? I want to see all your answers sa chat box. If you are watching us on Facebook, I want to see your answers sa Facebook comments. Tell me, sa tingin ninyo, what generation do you think you belong to? Ano yung generation na kinabibilangan ninyo? I hope that you're able to answer, no? So, okay, so merong sumagot ng Generation Z. How about the others? There are about 52 of us dito sa Zoom. Alam ko sa Facebook, there are also a number of us who are on Facebook. Tell me, anong generation do you belong to? So si Christine, sinasabi niya Generation Z. What about the others? What generation do you belong to? Well, participate naman tayo, no? Participate tayo. This is not one way, no? This is not just me teaching you. I want to hear from you. I really want to hear your thoughts and your ideas, you know? So si Arnie, si Generation Z, si Arosel, Generation Z. Wala bang magsasabi na, no, I don't belong to Generation Z. Si Ara, Generation Z din siya. Rosel, Alexander, Christine, no? Generation Z, si Mikey, si Aryan, Gen Z pa rin. What about the others? No, gusto kong makita yung nasa Facebook naman natin, no? Yung ating mga kasama sa Facebook. What are they saying? It would be nice to just hear your thoughts. Ano yung mga sinasabi ninyo na mga generational labels that you belong to? Let me see if I can look at the comments section here dito sa Facebook. Okay. I'm also looking at your comments. Si Jovelyn, Gen Z, Joshua, Diomar, Jessa, Laika. Okay, I'm seeing all your comments. Si Sherilyn, good morning po, sociologist. Good morning din sa'yo. Okay, I'm looking. Okay, so puro Generation Z. Generation Y, so we have somebody from Generation Y, si Carolina, si Lanoli, Generation Z. Okay, so si Romilin, so puro Generation Z. Okay. Generation Z. Si Alice naman is a millennial. Okay. Watch this, everyone. Watch this. I'm going to debunk. I'm going to challenge. I'm going to debunk, to challenge, to confront all those labels. Ipapakita ko sa inyo na may mali sa mga labels na yan pag ginamit natin sa konteksto natin dito sa Pilipinas. I'm going to challenge. So I want you to listen carefully how a sociologist tries to understand these generational labels at paano natin to dapat i-confront at paano natin to dapat pag-isipan. Well, are you ready? So if you're ready, thumbs up naman dyan. Thumbs up naman dyan if you're ready. I want to see your thumbs up or be as interactive as you can be. I want to see those. Alam ko na may problema tayo sa internet connections, but let's see how it goes, no? Let's see how it goes. If you think I'm speaking too fast, just make a comment. Or if you already have some questions, put the questions down or in the comment section or dito sa chat if you are in Zoom. Tapos subukan ko na sagutin along the way, no? Okay, thank you so much for those thumbs up. Mary, Joy, Carla, Reynalyn, Hazel, thank you so much. No, thank you. So paano, Jennifer, thank you. Paano ba tutugunan ito? Paano ba i-confront ng isang sociologist ang mga generational labels na to? Sabi niyo Gen Z kayo. Somebody said you're Gen Y. And then ako, sabi ko, I could be millennial. Unang tanong, where do these labels come from? Thank you for the 3 thumbs up, Angel. Thank you. Saan ba galing ito? You're looking at your screen right now, folks, and what do you see? These are the different generational labels created for us by scholars and social scientists in North America. Tingnan ninyo, 1928 to 1945 sa baba, silent generation. And then there's the baby boomers, those who were born in 1946 to 1964. And then the Generation X, 1965 to 1980. And then the Millennials daw from 1981 to 1996. And then Generation Z, kayo yun, 1997 to 2012. And ngayon may bago ng pakulo, Generation Alpha, those who were born from 2010 to 2020s. So it's so neat. It's so clean. All you have to do is to identify what year you were born in, and then voila, alam mo na kung nasaan kang generation. So those of you who were born in the early 2000s, you know that you're Generation Z. Ako, I was born in the 1980s. I know that I was born, therefore I belong to Generation Y or yung tinatawag na Millennials. Ang tanong, useful ba ito? Ang tanong, the big sociological question, and if you're taking notes, this is the time to take notes. The big sociological question is, how relevant are these labels to the Filipino context? How relevant are these labels in understanding the different generations in the Philippines today? How useful are these labels? Okay? I hope you're taking notes, everyone. Paano ba dinidefine ng sociologist ang generations? From a sociological perspective, you're seeing it on your screen right now. From a sociological perspective, what matters are not the year you are born in, but the shared experiences that you have collectively undergone. Isa pa. From a sociological perspective, you define a generation based on the shared experiences that people have collectively undergone. Collectively undergone. Malinaw ba? Malinaw ba? And this is a sociological thing to say, to be honest. Bakit? Kasi numbers, age, they're just a number. Age is just a number. Sinasabi natin, di ba? Pero bilang sociologist, we are interested what's going on in society, what's going on in politics, what's going on in society, in history. We're interested in those things, mga kapatid. We're interested, di ba? What is the sociological imagination? It's the ability to connect what happens in society with what happens to an individual. Agency, structure, history, free will, and the story of the person and the story of society. So hindi natin pwedeng maihiwalay yung dalawang yon because that's what makes us, from our point of view as sociologists. So ganun din ang ginagawa natin dito when we want to define generations. So Dr. Cornelio, the question therefore is, saan galing ito? Now you're looking at my screen again, the generational labels. Everyone listen. These labels can make sense in the context of North America and Western Europe. Tingnan ninyo, saan sila, ano yung mga markers na yan? 19 to 28 to 1945, silent generation, these were people who were born and then who fought, who experienced the war. The baby boomers, ano yung mga baby boomers? The people who were born after World War II, the population grew after 1945 in North America and Western Europe, yung mga liberal capitalist societies, kaya nagkaroon ng population explosion, ang tawag sa kanila baby boom. Nag-boom ang mga babies. Kaya ang tawag sa kanila baby boomer. And then later on, itong baby boomers na to, when they grew up, they became part of the advocacies against the Vietnam War. They grew up in the time of the Cold War, Russia versus the US. Galing sila sa after the war, World War II, hard war, hot war. When they were born, merong Cold War, no? Russia and the US, merong ipitan, merong payabangan, pero walang actual na gera, kaya siya Cold War. Generation X, these were the young people born in the 1960s to 1980. Ito yung mga kabataan, generation, matanda na sila ngayon obviously, pero at that time, when they were growing up, they benefited not just from population growth, but from economic growth. Again, North America, Western Europe. Nakukuha nyo ba? Nakukuha nyo? Are you following me? Merong story. In other words, ang bawat generation na ito. Tapos, people who were born in the 1980s, kasama na ako dyan, they were called millennials. Bakit? Kasi kami naman yung nag-come of age pagdating ng millennium, ng change ng millennium, nag-year 2000. No, with a very different experiences. Yung computer technology was being introduced, and the internet was being introduced, and these were people who grew up digital technology. So again, pansinin ninyo, ano yung story na nakikita natin sa development ng generational labels na ito? They all make sense in the context of North America, US, in the context of maybe the United Kingdom, maybe in the context of Western Europe, but certainly in the context of America, in the context of Canada. Ang ginagawa natin dito, we're using exactly the same labels to understand our own people. Ang problema, hindi ganun ang sociologists mag-isip. Look at the definition again. From a sociological perspective, you define a generation according to the shared experience that we have collectively undergone. Iba ang kwento ng mga kabataan who were born in the 1980s in the US kumpara dun sa mga Pilipino who were born in the Philippines in the 1980s. Iba rin yung karanasan ng mga Pilipino who were born or who grew up in the 1970s. So tell me, audience participation ulit tayo. Tell me, so now that you understand that history matters, now that you understand that political contexts matter, now that you understand that social issues matter, tell me, ano sa tingin ninyo yung mga experiences that people went through in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s na pinagdaanan ng mga Pilipino na hindi pinagdaanan ng ibang mga tao sa North America? Yung unique sa Philippine experience. Tell me. I want you to think. I'm giving you time right now. Answer. Tell me. Bigay nyo sa comment section sa Facebook. I'm looking at your answers right now, or dito sa chat box, no? Kung takot kayo, message me privately and I can also read that without mentioning your name. Kung takot kayo magkamali. Sa tingin niyo, ano yung mga experiences ng mga tao who grew up in the 1970s, who grew up in the 1980s, who grew up in the 1990s? Come on, folks. Don't disappoint me. Say something. No, say something. Share with me your thoughts. So si admin, meron siya sinasabing martial law. Okay, good. What else? Ano pa yung mga na-experience sa tingin ninyo ng mga parents ninyo or maybe lolo-lola ninyo when they were growing up in the 1960s or the 1970s or the 1980s? Anyone? Uy, ang dami natin dito. Walang nagpa-participate. Ang dami natin, 53 tayo. Sa Facebook, there are 65. Come on, help me. Help me. Social inequality, there's another comment. Si Shin, World War II. Sa nakikita ko sa Facebook, si Shin is World War II. Yeah, okay. World War II. Si Christine Mary is People Power. Wala nang ibang na-experience ang mga tao. World War II, People Power, martial law. Okay. Improvement ng technology. Salamat, Michelle. Improvement ng technology. Michelle, yung technology ba natin, kailan talaga nag-improve dito sa Pilipinas? No? Gender inequality, meron pa ganong experience. No? Si Alice, sabi niya, gender inequality. Discrimination. Typhoon. Rafonsil, anong mga typhoon sa tingin mo yung parang karanasan, shared experiences ng maraming mga tao dito sa Pilipinas? Meron bang mga shared experiences? No? So tandaan natin na shared experiences, hindi personal lang. No? Sabi ni Diomar sa Facebook, the cultural traditions that is practiced by the primitive generation and how they behave in the society. Okay. Earthquakes. Anong mga earthquakes kaya yung mga pinagdaanan nila? Okay. Yolanda. Yeah, kayo na nandiyan sa Samar, sa Eastern Philippines, sa Leyte. You know that. You know that very well. That's a great example. Yung Yolanda Typhoon, alam natin 2013 pa yon, and you remember distinctly, lahat kayo, mapabata, mapatanda, pinagdaanan nyo yon. Very good. Okay, so I'm seeing some comment. Lahat ng typhoon experience natin, sabi ni Reynalyn, sabi ni Angel, far from pollution coming from different machineries invented right now. Okay, poverty, sabi ni Christine. Economic competence. Crisel, what does that mean? Ano yung economic competence? No? Hardship, inequality, bullying, ito personal. Very, okay. Good. Good. Thank you for sharing those insights with me. I want you to think more critically. We're not only talking about your personal experience, we're talking about shared experiences. Ano yung mga pinagdaanan ng mga iba-ibang mga tao sabay-sabay. Thank you, Criselda. This is another example. Mount Pinatubo eruption, because it affected many Filipinos in the early 1990s. I was in grade school at that time, at naalala ko talaga, nakatira ako dito na sa Maynila, and I remember distinctly, when I woke up in the morning, the entire city was covered in white, gray ash. And to this day, pag pumunta ka sa Zambales, sa Pampanga, yung university doon, yung Holy Angel University, meron silang museum dedicated to commemorating Mount Pinatubo. So there were people who experienced that moment together. Meron naman people, sabi ni Angel dito, they experienced being under the martial law. Correct. That's another shared experience. Kaya meron mga human rights abuses. Tama ka, Kevin. Earthquake, no? Sino yung earth? So lahat ng earthquake na dumadaan dyan sa inyo sa Samar, sa Leyte, posible rin na it defines your experiences. Gaya ng Yolanda. Halimbawa, yung lindol dito sa Baguio, sa Manila noong early 1990s and really destroyed many buildings in Baguio, specifically Baguio. That defined that generation, early 1990s yun. At marami sa mga tatay ninyo ngayon or mga tito-tita, they will remember what happened at that time. You see, bear with me. Marawi Siege, if you are in Marawi, Christine, thank you. Now you are making sense. Now you are making sense. These are pivotal moments defining a generation. In fact, you can argue na pwede rin, may corruption ako nakikita, posible, pero I want you to be more specific. May nakikita ako mga comments about bullying, but I want you to be specific. Shared ba yan? Nararanasan ba ng lahat yan? Paano? And then, kung nararanasan na ng lahat yan, can we really define a generation that way? Bakit? Kasi ganun ang pag-describe at pag-define natin sa generations, hindi according to the year you were born in. Therefore, watch this. Therefore, posible na hindi natin gamitin ang millennial, Gen Z, Gen Y kasi they only refer to people who were born in North America at a given point in time. Digital technology, correct. Highly educated, correct. Dito sa Pilipinas, ibang experience natin. Maybe we can describe the people who went through the martial law as the martial law generation. People who experienced 1986, after 1986, as the people power generation. Hindi lahat pare-pareho, don't get me wrong, hindi lahat pare-pareho, pero they went through that same generation, that same experience. Pwede rin nating sabihin na gaya na sinabi ninyo, merong Yolanda generation. Hindi yan na-experience ng mga taga dito sa Maynila, pero na-experience yan ng Yolanda Corridor, no? Essentially from Eastern Visayas all the way to the west, no? To the other side. And that experience, yung flooding, yung daluyong, and so forth, yung homelessness, yung kahirapan na pinagdaanan nyo noon, no, yung economic problem noon, you all went through that, and that would define your generation. Pwede yun. Yung Marawi siege, ganun din, lalo na sa Marawi, no, sa Bangsamoro. So I want you to now you are realizing na ganun pala dapat mag-isip pag sinasabing generational labels. Experience, experience, experience. So, looking at my screen right now, looking at your screen right now, I am presenting to you, in other words, an alternative view. Millennial, Gen Z, are concepts developed in the West, carrying certain norms and social expectations inadequate to fully characterize Filipino youth and young adults today. The perspective offered here should inform more locally relevant work in the sociology of generations. Kuha nyo? Ulitin natin. Millennial, Gen Z are concepts developed in the West, carrying certain norms and social expectations inadequate to fully characterize Filipino youth and young adults today. Ibig sabihin, ang gusto natin mangyari, let's have more locally relevant work sa sociology of generations, sa sociology of youth. Bakit? Kasi may mga biases ang salitang millennial at Gen Z. Ipapakita ko yan sa inyo ngayon. May analytical mistakes. Looking at your screen right now, what do you see? There are two reasons kung bakit mali gamitin ang mga labels na ito in the Philippine context. The first is this. Pinaliwanag ko na ito. Ang linaw-linaw na nito by now. I hope you're able to explain this in your own way to your friends. Generational categories are directly imported from the West. Iba ang context ng North America. Mayaman silang bansa. Digitally connected sila. Galing sila sa World War II. Nabuhayan sila ng loob. Nagkaroon ng baby boomer, etc. Wala silang experience ng martial law. Wala silang experience ng Mount Pinatubo. Wala silang experience ng people who were born in the 1980s, marami sa amin ang mga pinanganak born to parents na OFWs. Bakit? Kasi noong 1970s, nagsimulang magpadala ang gobyerno under Ferdinand Marcos kasi mataas yung unemployment sa Philippines dahil maraming walang trabaho, naisipan ng gobyerno ni Ferdinand Marcos na magpadala ng mga OFWs abroad. The economy was really down sa Pilipinas at that time. So kung tutuusin, yung mga tao, at saan tayo una nagpadala ng mga OFWs? Sa Middle East. Sila ay mga engineers at mga construction workers and so forth at that time sa Middle East. Nagpadala tayo ng mga domestic helpers sa Singapore at Hong Kong later on na, mga 1990s na. Pero in the 1980s, it was really all our professionals. Bakit? Kasi bagsak na bagsak yung ekonomiya natin at that time. So nakikita ninyo, yung economic situation, may impact siya sa generation ng mga tao noon, ng mga tatay, nanay, siguro tito, tita natin, at marami sa kanila naging OFW sa Middle East. And guess what? Isa ako sa mga pinanganak born to an OFW father, a seaman. So in other words, I will argue na posibleng meron tayong OFW generation. Mga kabataan who were born to parents who are OFWs at they're also thinking na the only way for them to survive as a Filipino is not by working in the Philippines but by also working in other countries, no, as OFWs. So meron tinatawag na OFW or migration consciousness. Yan yung unang problema. Pangalawang problema ay young people are essentialized by using these generational categories. Ini-essentialize natin. Pupuntahan natin yan ngayon. Ano yung ibig sabihin ng essentialism? I'll give you some examples. Tingin kayo sa aking screen. Okay? Na-enjoy nyo po ba yung aking lecture before I carry on? Kung na-enjoy nyo naman, pwede ko bang makita ang heart or thumbs up? Pwede ko bang makita ang mga emoji na yan? If you're still enjoying our lecture, magbigay rin kayo ng mga insights at mga comments. Parang dalawa lang ang nag-e-enjoy. Salamat sa dalawang nag-e-enjoy, si Ara at saka si Annabelle, saka si Hazel. Thank you so much. I hope sa inyong tatlo ay this is making parang marami kayong na-realize, no? About life. Oh, yun, marami na bigla. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Here we go. Problemahin natin, let's problematize yung mga tinatawag na essentialisms. Ano yung nangyayari, friends? Look at this. Look at your screen, no? Look at your screen. Ang nangyayari is that because of these generational labels, we are biased against the youth. Oh, Novi, thank you. Yes po. Thank you for the pink hearts and the red hearts and the thumbs up. Thank you. Tingnan nyo sa screen ninyo, youth as a moral problem. Sabi ng isang social scientist ng Pilipino, si Amarilis Torres, sabi niya, nagkakaroon ng generational conflict because old and new values collide, which may lead to tectonic disruptions between generations. Yung tinatawag nating generational gap, folks, yung tinatawag nating generational gap, sa totoo lang, may generational gap because the values of your parents are very different from your values as young people. At bakit kayo magkaiba ng values? Bakit magkaiba kayo ng pananaw sa buhay? Because you were born in a very different social and historical context. Tandaan ninyo, mas maraming open-minded na ngayon, halimbawa sa mga kabataan tungkol sa LGBT. Mas marami ng open-minded. Yung mga panahon ng parents natin, mga tito or tita natin, pag sinabing bakla, nakakahiya. Pag sinabing lesbiana, pakasal mo na yan para mabuntis na yan, para mabago yan. Naririnig pa rin natin yan from these parents today and from these adults today. But from young people today, you are seeing and hearing a lot of resistance. Bakit sasabihin nila, what's wrong with being LGBTQ? What's wrong with being different, no? May mga ganong klaseng mindset, no? May mga ganong klaseng pagtingin. Or salot daw sa lipunan, Edward. Thank you so much for saying that. And I'm sorry kung ikaw mismo ang nakarinig niyan or narinig mo yan para sa ibang tao. I am very sorry that you're hearing that. But that is exactly what happens. Ang laging tingin ay ang mga kabataan yung problema. Ang matatanda, hindi sila problema. Bakit? Kasi may generational conflict. Generational conflict because you belong to you grew up in different times, different histories, different political situations, different religious attitudes even. Well, pag mamaya sa open forum, pag-usapan din natin siguro religion, yung mga paniniwala, pananampalataya, paano ito nagbabago. No? Okay? But essentialisms stick. Essentialisms stick. No? Especially if they serve the interests of powerful sectors. Listen, ito, medyo magiging tayo ngayon, talagang mas papasok na tayo sa empirical material. Worth reiterating here is the interest of businesses and the advertising industry to discipline the youth. This has the obligations too on how we understand the youth vote. Pansinin niyo, no? Pansinin niyo. Saan ba galing? Bakit ba Pag sinabing millennial or Gen Z, dapat kailangan tech savvy, magaling sa magaling sa technology, dapat maabilidad, dapat kayang mag-multitasking. Sinasabi din na impatient daw, laging naghahanap ng mga purpose sa buhay, palipat-lipat ng trabaho. Yun yung mga biases, di ba? Saan ba galing yung mga stereotypes na yan? Basahin ko lang yung comment dito ni Admin BA Sociology 4M. They thought na meron silang moral ascendancy. Exactly, no? Exactly. Pero tayo bilang sociologists, naiintindihan natin bakit merong generational conflict. Ibang panahon na kinalakihan nila, ibang panahon na kinalakihan natin ngayon. The job of the sociologist is to reveal, no? To reveal ano yung mga values na yan, bakit may pagkakaibang values na ganyan. Okay? So halimbawa, tingnan ninyo to, sabi ko advertising industry sa mga business interests. Dito sa Manila, there is this central business district called the Bonifacio Global City. Marami sa inyo siguro napuntahan na ito, BGC, social, napakamahal ng mga pagkain, napakamahal ng mga apartment. Kahit ako bilang isang professor, hindi ko kayang bumili ng apartment dito or mag-rent kasi yung mga rental dito nasa 40,000 pesos a month, no, para sa isang one bedroom na apartment na condo, no, 40,000, 50,000, ganun siya kamahal, no. Tingnan niyo yung description ng Facebook page ng BGC. Sabi niya, welcome to the home of passionate minds. Tumutukoy ito, yung passionate minds na yan, pag pinagtinignan nyo pa, content analysis nyo pa, yung Facebook page na ito, makikita nyo na ito that they were referring to the millennials and the Gen Z. Millennials and the Gen Z. Ito daw yung mga passionate. Bakit? Kasi may stereotype na kapag ikaw ay millennial, na kapag ikaw ay Gen Z, you are passionate. Committed ka. Kailangan, enjoy mo yung ginagawa mo. Ang BGC daw is home of the passionate minds kasi andyan ang mga financial district, andyan ang mga advertising companies, nandyan ang mga headquarters ng mga bagong bangko, andyan ang mga headquarters ng marketing industry. Yan, ganyan. So dapat, sino ba yung pumupunta sa mga banking, finance, advertising, marketing? Yung mga passionate daw. At ang mga Gen Z at mga millennials, passionate daw. See? Nakikita ninyo? Merong pag-stereotype na nangyayari. May essentialism na nangyayari. Napapaisip lang ako pag nakikita ko itong mga comments na ito, yung mga ganyang klaseng mga advertising, kasama ba dyan yung mga kabataan na tinamaan ng Yolanda sa Visayas? Passionate din ba sila nating masasabi? At makakapagtrabaho rin ba sila sa ganyan? Ma-afford din ba nila yung mga ganyang kamamahal na mga apartment para maging home nila ang BGC? Or napakaliit lang na segment ng mga kabataan ang makaka-afford nito? O di hindi tayo pare-pareho ng experience? Paano yung mga kabataan na pinanganak sa Bangsamoro, out of school youth, pinakamataas ang poverty rate, nasa Bangsamoro. Mataas din ang conflict. Laging may conflict. Marawi siege. Nag-aaral ka ngayon sa university, sa MSU, Mindanao State University, das biglang may bombahan, biglang wala ka ng klase. No? Bigla kang wala ng future, biglang walang ganoon na ulit yung mindset mo. Paano yun? Di ba, mga kabataan din sila? Thank you for these comments. No, si Reynalyn, nagko-comment sila. Si Nicole, no sir, they cannot afford. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Pag ginagamit natin yung millennials are passionate, Gen Z people are passionate, ipaglalaban nila ang passion nila. Sino yun? Sino ang may afford ng passion? Tingnan nyo ito, isa pa. Sa Twitter naman ito, ni-launch ang isang napaka-social na mall, Estancia, dito sa Pasig. Nakasulat, tingnan mo yung tweet. Ortigas Land, yung real estate. Ortigas Land says, the new east wing of Estancia was designed by millennials for millennials, quote unquote. Ortigas Cinemas includes 4 regular and 2 premier cinemas. There's also an SM store in the mall. So mall naman. Tingnan niyo yung claim. Designed by millennials for millennials. Again, ang tanong ko, sinong millennial ba ang pinag-uusapan dyan? Sinong millennial? Sinong millennial ang makaka-afford nito? Sino ang makaka-access nito? Kita ninyo? Every time we use the word millennial, sa totoo lang, anong nare-realize ninyo? Share with me. Anong nare-realize na ninyo ngayon sa lesson na ito? Tell me. I have maybe 10 to 15 more minutes para mas marami tayong time sa open forum. At siguro pag-isipan rin ninyo yung mga realizations na yan, tapos share with me sa open forum. Gusto ko maging maganda at malalim ang open forum natin. Ano yung mga nare-realize ninyo now na nagso-sociology of youth tayo? Nagso-sociology of generations tayo. Diba? Ano yung mga nararamdaman din ninyo? Are you happy? Are you inspired? Are you disappointed? Tell me. Thanks, Nico. O, tingnan nyo ito, advertising. Favorite ko yung stereotype na millennials and the Gen Z, they're tech savvy. Mahilig sila sa cellphone, mahilig sila sa gadgets, mahilig sila sa gano'n. Stereotype na stereotype, di ba? Tapos, magkakaroon ng mga advertisements na ganito, no? Magkakaroon ng sale ng Lazada, magkakaroon ng smart prepaid, Giga Life, mga ganyan, ano? I-advertise na ganyan. Tapos ang claim ay, we want to cater to the needs of the digital natives, ang mga millennials at mga Gen Z, yung mga pinanganak na nagko-computer na, hindi sila nagta-typewriter katulad ng mga nanay or mga tito-tita natin. Computer na agad sila, mag-gadget na agad sila, mas smartphone na agad sila. So again, may stereotyping. Sandali. Di ba nung nagkaroon na ng pandemic, na-realize natin na hindi tayo lahat kaya makapag-online. Ngayon nga lang dito sa Zoom natin, ilan yung in and out kasi hirap na hirap ang internet connection nila. Sa Facebook, ilan lang yung in and out. Exactly, Reynalyn, inequality of social status ba yan? Saka si Christine, di na ma-afford. So again, kita nyo how the advertising industry stereotypes the youth today? May mali, di ba? May mali. Ito talaga kinaiinisan ko ito. Teka, bago ako magpatuloy, babasahin ko lang ang sinabi ni Hazel. Nagkakaroon po ng hindi pantay na pagtingin sa estado ng henerasyon mayroon sa bawat kabataan. Exactly. This is a great point. Hindi pantay, exagerado, tapos hindi pantay, essentialist. Thank you. Now you're starting to think. Thank you. Tingnan nyo ito. Favorite ko ito. Isang article ito sa Manila Standard. Sabi nila, tingnan nyo. Nagkaroon daw ng survey. Survey daw. Okay? Nag-survey daw sila at sabi, within Generation Z, tingnan nyo yung sa paragraph sa baba, first column, potentially accounting for over 20% of the workforce by 2020, their views on technology as well as the workplace will reshape the workforce. Tingnan nyo. Number 1, sabi na lang sa survey nila, Gen Z wants to work with cutting-edge technologies. Gusto daw nila high-tech gadgets. May pa-survey pa, may percentage pa. 88% of Filipinos aspire to work with cutting-edge technologies. 97% Filipinos will consider the type of technology provided as important when considering two similar jobs. Yung technology daw. Sandali lang. Hindi ba ngayon nga lang mahirapan pa yung walang kuryente yung ibang mga lugar sa Pilipinas? Ang dami-daming urban poor at rural poor, walang kuryente. Generator ang ginagamit. Di ba napaka-essentialist, napaka-stereotype? Thank you for this comment sa chat. Sabi ng chat dito sa Zoom, the word millennial itself is being normalized in society already, which formulates a lot of misconception about them. Thank you. This is a this is a very smart comment. Ilalagay ko ito dito sa Facebook para makita ng iba. The word millennial, thank you. Kung sino man yan, thank you. You're very smart. Exactly the point. Nagkakaroon ng stereotyping, tapos pag na-stereotype, na-generalize, tapos pag nagkaroon ng generalization, people judge your generation. Yung youth as a moral problem, yung pinakita ko kanina sa inyo. Number 2, balikan natin yung nasa screen. Gen Z, mga Gen Z daw, kayo, are eager to share your knowledge to reduce an inevitable digital divide among 5 generations in the workplace. May survey na naman. Number 3, kayo daw ay confident about your tech skills, pero hindi kayo workforce ready. So kailangan daw yung mga organizations mag-upskill ng kanilang mga kabataan sa kanilang workplace. So ano nakikita ninyo dito? Pasok ba kayo sa description nito ng article na ito about Gen Z? You're tech savvy, you want cutting edge technologies, you want to be high tech. Paano yun? Paano yun? So you're realizing, okay? So keep your comments coming, keep your sharing, keep your thoughts coming, ideas coming, okay? Tuloy tayo. In other words, ito, this is my big insight. In Philippine society, millennial or Gen Z culture is not only articulated by adults and internalized by the youth. It is defined by the privilege about the privilege. The discourse about the minority has been imposed on the majority. Pag sinabing millennial Gen Z, techie. Millennial Gen Z, passionate. Millennial Gen Z, impatient. Naghahanap parati ng trabaho, lipat-lipat ng trabaho kasi laging nabubore. Millennial Gen Z, magaling, mahusay, highly educated. Wait a minute. Sino ang tinutukoy ng mga stereotypes na yun? It is defined by the privilege about the privilege. Minority lang yun. The discourse about the minority has been imposed on the majority. Eh, sino ba ang majority sa Pilipinas? Hindi ba maraming mga kabataan ang hirap pa ngayon? Alice, thank you for that comment. Exactly, sabi ni Alice. May isa pang comment dito sa akin sa Zoom. Sabi ay, labeling creates generational boundaries. These boundaries produce extremes to both the old and the new. Technology, for instance, must be inclusive regardless of age. This mindset is problematic in our nation's workforce. Ang talino, ilalagay ko ulit sa Facebook. Sorry ha, nakikisingit ako sa comment section sa Facebook kasi para makita rin ninyo yung mga pinag-uusapan dito sa Zoom. Okay? So, konti na lang to. I'm almost done. No, I'm almost done. Really. In other words, young people in the Philippines today are fragmented. Fragmented. Economic situation, ilan sa mga parents ninyo ang may trabaho ngayon at walang trabaho? Pinalala ng pandemic. Unemployment. Before the pandemic, pero tinatawag na youth unemployment. Okay? Ang tawag doon, youth unemployment. Within the 18 to 24 age bracket, okay, ilan dyan ang may trabaho, ilan dyan ang walang trabaho. Yung walang trabaho, yun yung tinatawag na youth unemployment. Alam nyo kung ano? Tininon ko yung statistics. 50%. 50% before the pandemic. 50%, 50% of 18 to 24-year-old Filipinos jobless. Ibig sabihin, mga fresh graduates, walang trabaho. Before the pandemic. So most likely, mas lumala yan ngayon. No? So ano yun? So kanina sinasabi nung article na gusto laging tech savvy, pero actually ang problema ay trabaho pa rin. Yung walang trabaho, maraming mga kabataan dito. Siyempre gusto ko lahat ng mga estudyante ko, gusto ko lahat kayo makahanap ng trabaho pagka-graduate. Pero yun ang situation natin ngayon. May mga ibang makakapagtrabaho at mayroong ibang hindi makakapagtrabaho. At yung mga taong makakapagtrabaho, hindi lahat makakapagtrabaho sa BGC. Yung iba, nahihirapan. Fragmented. Number 3, educational access. Maraming out-of-school youth today. And finally, marami pang ibang modes of social inequality. In sociology, we often talk about inequality in terms of class. Diba? The bourgeois and the proletariat, very Marxist. That's correct. That's important. But I also want to argue, I also want to propose to you all that there are other modes of inequality. Ethnicity, for example, in the Philippines. I think we can come up with a good analysis and realize that um, the Moro people in the Philippines, the Muslim, no, Muslim Filipinos, yung mga Moro, they live in Bangsamoro, Mindanao, no, Magindanaoan, Maranao, Tausug, Sama, Yakan, no, yung mga ganon. Um, we know that if you are Moro, most likely you are below poverty threshold. Meron ding geography, urban, rural divide, no? And then within a city, we can also analyze who enjoys private space and who suffers in the public space, no? Pwede rin ganon. Modes of social inequality. Those who can afford their own private cars and those who can only afford to take the jeepney. Inequality rin yun. Yes, class, definitely class, but we also want to recognize na it is expressed, that inequality is expressed in many, many ways in Philippine society. And I challenge you, my students, to be sensitive, to be critical. Inequality, especially in your generation. Okay? Wala na lang yan. Sige. For example, ito, no? I'm doing a lot of research in Marawi, kaya malapit sa puso ko ang Marawi siege, ang Maranao. Immediately after the Marawi siege in 2017, I went there with some of my friends, some of my colleagues, mga sociologists also at the Mindanao State University in Iligan. We visited the place and conducted interviews there. So can you imagine the impact of conflict, a government's decision to destroy the city, right? You can just imagine the impact and the consequences on people. Even to this day, as we speak, my students, ladies and gentlemen, even today, as we speak, a lot of these people are still unable to go back to their own houses, to their own shelters, and they will never be able to. Never. Ito yung research namin ni Septrin, sociologist din siya, sociology professor sa MSU, Iligan, IIT. This came out just last month or 2 months ago. This is about the youth and aspirations of young people the youth and aspirations in post-conflict Marawi. If you are interested in this article, you can download it sa website ko. I'll show you the link later on. It would be nice to for you, no, to discover ano yung mga experiences ng mga kabataan, people your age in Marawi. Read this article. In other words, the shared experience of young people today is inequality. Inequality. Meron tayong economic vulnerability in particular, no? Meron ding kaya marami sa mga kabataan wala nang interest sa politika kasi you are more concerned about your economic situation. Okay? Kaya sabi ni Randy David, mas lalong lumalala, sabi niya, self-serving politics can only spawn among the younger generation an even more individualistic and self-centered attitude towards life. Randy David is one of the most eminent sociologists in the country today. Sabi niya, parang, itong mga politikong ito, ginagamit lang nila ang mga kabataan tuwing eleksyon. Pero kapag nanalo na sila, wala na ang mga kabataan sa kanilang programa. Pansinin niyo yan. Paulit-ulit yan. Young people ang sasabihin na the youth vote can make a difference. Lagi yan. Lagi naririnig yan. And actually, personally, I hate it. No? I hate it whenever I hear that. Kasi laging yung burden nasa kabataan. Pero whenever these politicians win, how many policies have actually they created to help our youth today? Sure, meron ng free education, yan, yung mga ganon, no? Etc. But I want us to understand, our young people are still lagging behind behind the rest of the world. Yung educational quality natin, alam niyo yan, ladies and gentlemen, right? That we are the weakest in terms of science and mathematics, for example, in the world. And then they say the youth are the hope of the future. Empower the youth. And then you say, The youth are the hope of the future. So the big question that we have, that we're asking right now one another is this: how do we bridge these divisions? Napaka-fragmented ng libayan natin. Napaka-fragmented ng mga kabataan ngayon. There are educated youth, there are not uneducated youth. There are youth in universities, there are also out-of-school youth. There are young people who are studying for, there are young people who are able to afford lifestyles at BGC, but there are so many other young people who will never be able to afford those lifestyles at BGC. And they will continue to struggle. So I want you to think about that question as we embark on our open forum. Meanwhile, no, bilang pagtatapos, I wanted to share this with you. This is a book that I edited noong 2020. It came out sa University of Santo Tomas Publishing House. I hope the library at UEP can get a copy of this. If you have, it's available also on Lazada, saka sa Shopee, sa UST mismo. This is everything that I talked about today. I have written about. I have written in this book, together with many other Filipino sociologists. 13 chapters, I think, from different parts of the country about talking about Filipino millennials. So if you're interested in the sociology of youth, in the sociology of generations, it's a very good book to refer to. No, I hope this is my first book published many years ago. Tungkol naman ito sa kabataang Katolikong Pilipino. If you are interested in how religion is changing in the lives of young people today, maybe this is a good book to read also. If you want a copy, just email me. Gawa tayo ng paraan. I hope the library can also get a copy. Okay? Let me end here. I want to share with you my website. You can download my articles, my publications there, all my scholarly publications. This is my email account, and that's my Twitter handle. Okay, so Hazel, yeah, if you want to email me, Hazel, yeah, this is my email address. Please email me, and I'll be happy to share what I could with you. But if I may encourage you, visit my website first. Ma-download ninyo dyan yung marami kong mga publications. All right? Okay, dokes. All right. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I really hope that this has been a fruitful and provocative lesson para sa ating lahat. Let's have our open forum. Thank you.
Sir, pahabol lang po, before we go, would it be okay to ask for some word of advice or encouragement for us, the graduating students of BA Sociology, and to those who are still unsure as to why they took this course?
Okay. Thank you, Crisel. So let me now speak to all the sociology students. First things first, let me just assure you that you are in the right course. It's a difficult course. It's an uncertain course. It's a confusing course. But you are in the right course. And why am I saying this? We sociologists have the capacity to understand the problems of our society in ways that other courses don't. Bakit? Gaya na sinabi kanina ni Iman, sabi ng inyong professor, everything is interconnected. Everything is interrelated. Everything. And I tell you, only sociologists have that capacity to take a step back and look at the world and say, yeah, economy, politics, history, religion, family life, generations, you can see the connections. And you see how they make a difference or they impact on people's lives. That's one. The other reason why I think you are in the right course is this. Sociologists are not interested in only analyzing society. We are here because we want to make this world a better place. We want to change society. And I do hope and pray, Crisel, You, Iman, your peers, your generation, and all other sociology majors who are watching us today, I want you to realize at the core, at the very core of our discipline is this desire to make the world a better place. Gender inequality bothers us. Poverty troubles us. Domestic violence affects us. We say no to every form of injustice there is in the world because we understand it and we know that it is wrong. I think sociologists, we have this responsibility, not only intellectual, but also moral, to change, to challenge, confront injustice wherever it occurs. That is our moral calling as sociologists. And I hope you will not give up on that calling. So you might be uncertain about this course, but I tell you, this is the right course. At padayon, at wag bibitaw, marami pa tayong gagawin sa ating bansa.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for accommodating us despite your schedule.
Thank you so much po.
Thank you po.